UWITV now presents the Association of Caribbean Higher Education Administrators 18th Annual Conference under the theme New Times, New Approaches to Higher Education. Here now is the fourth session of day one.
My name is Anna Perkins, and I'm the moderator for this afternoon session, Quality Assurance, Good to Best. So if you would indulge me, I would like to introduce our presenters and also to just let you know what the title of their presentations are. So I'm going to introduce you all in one shot and then invite you to begin. All right? So our first presentation today is on the role of human resource management in institutional effectiveness, a comparative study of 2 Ghanaian universities. The presentation is actually research written by Dr. Paul Addo, Miss Felicia Amankawa, and Mr. Solomon Panford, and they're all from Kwame Nkrumah University in Ghana, except for Mr. Pamforth, who is from? University of Energy and Natural Resources. All right. And of course, Mr. Mankawa is making the presentation on behalf of the group. So that's our first presentation. Our second presentation will be tertiary students' perception of quality education, processes vis-a-vis product, a case study of a Jamaican university. Why everybody being so vague about universities all of a sudden and don't want to call university names. But anyway, Mrs. Lucretia Gordon Brightson from UTEC, Jamaica, is going to be making that second presentation. And then finally, our third presentation is exploring fit for purpose, an important quality marker. And that presentation was prepared by Dr. Marcia Williams and Dr. Ellen Campbell Grizzle, 2 very well-known names from UTEC in Jamaica. And Dr. Williams will be making that presentation on behalf of the group. Just to say to you, our first presenter, Dr. Amankawa, she is the Senior Assistant Registrar at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and she also has a lot of background in quality and quality assurance. Then, of course, there's Mrs. Lucretia Gordon Brightson, and Lucretia has been in education for 25 years, believe it or not. It doesn't show. And of course, she's at UTEC at the moment in the capacity of corporate education coordinator. If you want to know a little bit more about the role, perhaps in our interaction time, we could ask her some questions, because I've never heard of such a role. So, Lucretia, do let us know what that entails. And of course, finally, Dr. Marcia Williams. Dr. Williams is also at UTEC, and you're the chair of the School of Health Sciences, are you not? Chair of the Quality Assurance Committee for the College of Health Sciences. Wonderful. So as you can see, we have 3 very well qualified ladies to lead us in some discussions this afternoon, and we'll start off with Miss Amankawa.
I don't think you need any more introduction, as I've already been introduced to you. Me and my colleagues Paul Addo and Solomon Pamford did a research on human resources effectiveness or human resources management effectiveness in institutional effectiveness. So I'm going to go through how the research was done, what we considered, and then what we evaluated, as well as the findings and some recommendations. So the outline, as you can see, I'll go into the introduction briefly, and we'll look at the 2 institutions that the case was based on, which is Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology and University of Energy and Natural Resources. They're both in Ghana. Then we'll look at why we did it, the methods we employed, and then the role of HR in organizational effectiveness. And then I'll go into some HR policies and procedures that we use in the 2 institutions. We'll look at some findings, some conclusions, and some recommendations. And I'll be happy to have some contributions or questions or anything after that. Okay, so for introduction, we all know that institutions design strategic plans in achieving some objectives. basically when we do our strategic planning, the mechanisms that we use, and there's a growing awareness for us to look at how institutions are effective in terms of their performances. So HR plays a... Okay, so we know that HR from studies plays a major role in how effective institutions should be. Therefore, there's a need to examine very innovative approaches to HR practices in our higher institutions within Africa and the Caribbean. Okay, going back. Oops. Okay, so we look at the two institutions involved in this study. The first one is Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, where Mr. Ado and myself work. And then the University of Energy and Natural Resources, where Mr. Pamford works. Mr. Pamford was also part of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And recently, he has been promoted or got an appointment as a registrar for UNEL. So that's why we did a study on both. If we look at the characteristics or the overall briefing of both universities, you can see that KNUST is an old university based on when it was established. So it was established before Ghanaian independence in 1957. It was established before then by government ordinance. And in 2011, we had the UNEL, which is a fairly young institution. So both institutions in terms of funding are both public funded, if we compare them both. But the population of students vary because KNUST is an older institution with about 45,000 students. And then you see UNEL with about 6,000 students. Perhaps they are also specialized in natural energy. And so obviously they are pretty small, or 3 times smaller than we are. In terms of vision statements, they both have various different visions. KNUST is looking at a globalized, recognized premier center of excellence for Africa in terms of teaching in science and technology, and also they are looking to produce higher profile caliber students with knowledge and expertise in terms of supporting industry and social economic development of Ghana and Africa. When it comes to UNEL, they intend to train the next generation of expertise, and then for them to provide a cutting-edge research to support Ghana's development in terms of natural energy. So these are the two vision statements of the two different institutions. Again, in terms of, because we are looking at HR, or human resources management within organizational effectiveness, we look at the HR structure. And for KNUST, there's a well-functioned HR division made up of 4 sections. So we have appointment and promotions we have 3 different level of staff categories. So we have the appointment and promotion for senior members, which is the highest category of staff. And then we have appointment and promotion for senior staff, which is the middle category of staffing. And then the lower category is the junior staff. And there's also a section responsible for training and development, which was where I was before I got transferred again to quality assurance. In terms of, it's actually headed by a deputy registrar, and then we have senior assistant registrars supporting the various units within the HR department. In terms of UNEL, they have a functional HR department headed by a senior assistant registrar. So you can see the 2 variations within the institutions in terms of HR. So in terms of methodology, we actually compiled information in relating to the 2 institutions on HR-related policies. So in KNUST, we have various policies on HR in various areas, and not an overall policy, manuals and also practices within the 2 institutions. Secondly, we looked at both institutions on the basis of how old or how young they are. So like I said before, KNUST is older, and then UNEL is a younger establishment. And we also looked at the structure, which I've just showed you a few minutes ago. We spoke to both heads in terms of UNEL, Senior Assistant Registrar, and also Deputy Registrar for HR in KNUST. And in terms of the study, we know that institutions, in terms of the context, we know institutions around the world are well integrated within the HR management system. But in terms of Ghana, we are still trying to evolve from the personal management style. We have the HR management perspective, but we are still evolving. There's still things that are still old because we are still living in the personal management system. Therefore, because resources are limited, it makes it difficult for us to be effective in terms of the human resources management system that we ought to be. In terms of that, we look at the comparative analysis between the older university, which is KNUST, and the younger institution in terms of HR policies and practices that are used. So we come to the two, we looked at this already. Okay, so studies have increasingly identified that in order to improve for a university to be effective, we have to be aware of the practices and also improve the performances in the ways in terms of the quality assurance and also the productivity. That is what Vode and the rest identified. In saying that, in the same way, Kehoe and others have also proven that human resources interventions such as training, performance management, as well as career development, which I was responsible for when I was in HR, are also influences that has impact on organizational effectiveness. So we'll look at the various areas where KNUST compares with UNEL. I said before that policies exist. For example, in KNUST, there isn't a comprehensive human resources policy. The same with UNEL. But we have an orientation system. So when a new member of staff is employed, we have a system whereby, in order for you to fit into the institution, we draw up a timetable and then get you to familiarize yourself with the different areas before you are sent to the department that you're supposed to be working with, or the college. We also looked at the training and development side of things. And then for KNUST, we have a study leave system, as well as a training and development policy, which is now a draft. So it's still being looked into. So very soon, hopefully, it will be made, it will be implemented. I worked on that, so I'm hoping that they will accept it and then move it forward. We also have a mentoring system, a mentoring policy, which is currently in existence. By mentoring, what we do is, from the time a member of staff, a potential member of staff at interview stage, you are given a mentor, for example, the teaching staff. Before the panel interview is over and the discussion has been decided that you're going to be employed, you are allocated a mentor. So a mentor that will help you, get you to, apart from the orientation system, when you go to your department, there's also a mentor for you to help you understand the way the system works. So we do that. And we also have annual institutional training as well. We have a training session called Summer School, whereby the whole institution during the holiday period come together. We decide on a topic, and then the various areas goes and have training sessions on that. So this is the whole institution in the various categories, whereby I actually organized it for about 4 good years. That is the time that everybody in the institution comes together. Even if you don't see somebody for years, you come to summer school, you find them, because everybody participates. Even if they are on leave, they will come. And we come together, we do training, do capacity building, and then it's the time to talk about what goes on in the institution. But UNEL doesn't have a system like that. They have a study leave policy, but they don't have, and they have training and development policies as well as mentoring, but they don't have the annual institutionalized training that we have. And so that's the difference. We also have a performance management system, which is currently replacing the traditional performance appraisal system, whereby we look at the holistic performance of a member of staff rather than looking at one area. I think this morning I was telling a group about how our teaching staff are being assessed. Is one of the ways that we look at the appraisal system. In terms of the non-teaching staff, or the professional staff, as we call it, we are also getting on stream their PMS very soon, and also I'm working on that with some other colleagues. But in terms of UNEL, they have the traditional performance appraisal system. Maybe very soon they might change over to the PMS system. In terms of promotion and appointments, we have criteria existing in both universities. So for us, it's the various categories that determines your appointment or promotion. So we have that, but we don't have an HR audit that look at the HR system holistically. And this is where we fall short in terms of both institutions. Sorry. So in terms of findings, we realized, as I've just told you earlier on, that there isn't an HR policy, a comprehensive HR policy, which both institutions need to work on. And KNUST have a well-decentralized section. So we operate the collegiate system, whereby the various institutions manages their own affairs, but again, it's it's a semi-centralized and decentralized system which we operate. But because it's a pretty young institution, they have just one composite HR office. Again, our mentoring system are formalized, which I explained to you before. And then in terms of senior management, we have the various policies in place. UNEL is yet to have that. Both institutions also have issues on, also require funding, adequate funding in order to support the system so that they work effectively to achieve the institutional effectiveness. So in terms of recommendations, obviously, there's a need for the institutions to put structures in place in order to use the mechanism in terms of continuous organizational feedback. We use this feedback to begin to formalize things, make sure that the policies are working. And the feedback section should be in place to implement a higher performance work system, which looks at the holistic arrangements of the HR system. We also need to incorporate that with our current labor laws and university acts, as well as statutes and policies. That's the ones that are guided by the institutions in our setting. There are also budget constraints in relation to HR. So for example, if there's a need for a training and development for members of staff, we go through a whole series of decision making before they say yes or no. The other one is also, we believe that our HR registrars needs to be exposed internationally so that they can look at the way other institutions do things in relation to HR to help us in terms of study tours or also broaden our knowledge. And finally, there's a need for us to also look at the specialized specific areas of HR to enable us to be top-class professional services. Thank you so much.
But colleagues, please join me in thanking Ms. Amankawa for her presentation. I'll now invite Mrs. Gordon-Brightson.
So I'm here to present on tertiary students' perception of quality education. And my presentation outline, I'll be looking at, wow, what went here? There's a delay. Okay, so I'll be looking at the introduction, research objectives and questions, literature review, the methodology, discussion of the findings, and the conclusion. Now I begin by saying that quality in higher education is regarded as a complex, problematic, contested, and multidimensional concept involving many stakeholders, both internal and external to the institution. Now, the stakeholders include government, students, funding agencies, employers, teaching and learning staff, accreditation and certification bodies. And all of these stakeholders have their own perspectives or philosophical views as it relates to quality education. Harvey and Green stated that there were two main categories or perspectives as it relates to quality. They looked at quality as being absolute, and this is an elitist or traditional view wherein quality is regarded as ideal, a place where there is no compromise, and it is usually unattainable to most people. They say quality in this case is seen as excellence, is defined as excellence. You have the best students, the best resources, the best school. There is zero defects. Then quality is also seen as relative, and this is what most of us would subscribe to. Here, we say stakeholders set minimum standards, and so these standards, so you have educational institutions having their standards, you have students, professional bodies, so it is subjective. And so most persons who share this view define quality, depending on who you are, as fitness for purpose, value for money, return on investment. And those are some of the definitions that will come out in my study. Now, the literature suggests that for too long, we have been looking at quality in education using a top-down approach. And so it is no, if education is now being regarded as a business and that students are our main customers, then we need to shift our focus. And we need to look at students more of students' perception as it relates to what their needs are in a quality education. So then, what is this study about? It's really about how it is that we meet the needs of our students. Our case study is actually the University of Technology, Jamaica. And it is the national university, and as such, we want to find out how it is that we can continue to offer quality and competitive educational products. And so the study seeks to investigate undergraduate student perception of their higher educational experiences in one faculty at the university. Now, my research objectives are really to determine how students in the enrolled course of study in that select faculty define quality education. Secondly, to obtain a better understanding of what aspects of the university experience students place value on in determining quality education. And then at the bottom, I have the research questions, which what does quality mean to you? What aspects are considered in your determination of quality? And how has the faculty been able to respond to these quality indicators? No, this study was limited to one faculty within the university, and the researcher considers that this is a preliminary study and that for us to get further enriched data, it means that we would possibly need to have more focus group sessions and a greater number of participants. This is the wrong. The methodology. So this is a qualitative research. We've used a case study approach, and purposeful sampling. The sample population consisted of 9 students who were enrolled in the summer session within that select faculty. We used focus group discussions, interviews, and document reviews. And ethical considerations were considered. Now, my literature review took me to tertiary institutions in 6 countries, namely UK, Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. And from this review, I was able to pick at least 5 themes throughout. And the first, which was most common, was teaching and learning experience. And the students there perceived quality education as having relevant curriculum content, high interaction between learner and facilitator, acknowledgement of learning styles in content delivery, timetabling, sufficient contact hours, reasonable class sizes, being able to contact lecturer outside of class time, the mode of delivery, and in general relationships. And then, of course, they placed some emphasis on the social and emotional support systems. They spoke about wanting to have a pleasant learning environment. They wanted opportunities to interact with other students and faculty through clubs and society and any other social opportunities. And of course, this was a big one, the availability of physical resources and technological resources. They all spoke about having a reliable internet access and technology at their fingertips. They spoke about sufficient library resources and learning space. They spoke about computers, but specialized computers with specialized software. They spoke about accommodation, fitted accommodation. Fourthly, employability was big. For quality education, our students wanted to have programs that promoted work readiness. So a lot of value was placed on interaction with industry through job attachments, mentorship, work experience, etc. They also placed a lot of emphasis on value for money. It was important to know how it is that their tuition fees were being utilized and if the contact hours would equate to what they were actually paid. There was a rejection to passive teaching. They wanted to be heard and to whatever it is, situations, they wanted prompt response to situations as it related to teaching and learning. Now, turning attention to my own investigations, I found that it was very similar to what the literature said. Having spoken to my participants, we were able to find some common elements and come up with a definition for quality education. And they stated that it was that which prepared students through the acquisition of knowledge, skills, and competencies to function effectively beyond the classroom. And beyond the classroom for them normally meant at the workplace. They also had some additional criteria. They said it must meet industry standards, it must be locally and internationally recognized, their course of study. Whatever it is, they must be able to practically apply it. And of course, it should raise their standard of living. At the end, it must raise their value as a worker in the workplace. And of course, it must compare well with international best practices. As it relates to what aspects of the university experience that they considered in their determination of quality education and the importance, first and foremost, it was the teaching and learning experience. Let's see if I can get that. So when we talk about the teaching and learning experience, our students wanted to have lecturers who were qualified in the area that they were expected to deliver in. They wanted to ensure that their lecturers are able to relate to them. That means that they were able to transfer the knowledge, because they thought it was one thing to know and one thing to transfer it to them. And there was a challenge there for many of the lecturers transferring knowledge. And I think one of the challenges with that was because they found that a number of their lecturers were part-time lecturers. So they say they had the industry know-how, but the pedagogical training was absent. They wanted lecturers who not only had the ability to offer academic advisement, but also career advisement, because many of them, they were enrolled in programs, but they weren't really sure of what they really wanted to do, if that is really their career path. So they were anxious to have persons who would be able to help them. They also believed in cultural diversity and they embraced it. However, there was a challenge with language barriers. They found that lecturers who spoke English as a second language, they had to, and especially when those lecturers taught the numerate subjects, they had the challenge of trying to understand the principles that are being taught, as well as to overcome that language barrier. Okay, so they also wanted lecturers who would utilize varying methodologies or teaching styles, and they would use technology to engage them. What they found is that there was no emphasis on the different learning styles. Everybody was comfortable with the didactic methods. And so they considered that some of their lecturers were lazy. They did not want to take the time to prepare adequately for them. They wanted lecturers who had the ability to use the related technologies. What they found was that lecturers were very basic. Some could not turn on the machines. They thought that some basic softwares that were utilized in the course, the lecturers may not know how to use those basic software. And of course, they praised the lecturers who tried their best. And they talked about lecturers, and they were very excited about a particular learning management system, Kahoot, which they thought was very good. They got a lot of practice activities, feedback. They enjoyed going to those three-hour classes, as opposed to a lecturer who does only lecturing for 1 hour. They wanted the expanded use of the Moodle, which is a learning system, and not just for uploaded information. And they wanted lecturers who they could relate to. They wanted lecturers who were patient, interested in their learning, showed empathy and willingness to offer mentorship. They wanted lecturers who demonstrated the ability to communicate and interact with them even outside of the classroom. And as you see Jane Doe saying that the biggest impact on her educational experience would have been lecturers who she was able to interact with freely and speak about anything. And that really did good for her overall grade in those subjects. Then they spoke about adequate and timely feedback, and what they found that this was particularly problematic where the part-time lecturers were concerned. One student said they simply need to spend more time with their modules. So they taught and they left. And outside of that, they were not able to contact them until class time, or sometimes they were late in offering feedback. And of course, Jessica said that it would help because they would know sometimes they don't get back their feedback in time for final exams. And if they had gotten it back before, they would know where to put more emphasis. And I see that time is against. What's happened here? All right, I'm not sure what's happening. All right, so let me go. All right, so yes, so we spoke about quickly now. We are talking. They spoke about the adequacy and availability of key technologies. Wireless internet access was important. Software in the studios and labs. They spoke about the use of technology-mediated learning. In that, they did not just want face-to-face, they wanted a combination of face-to-face and online learning. They spoke about the library facilities, although they didn't use it much, just to ensure that it is there and it was adequate, and they mostly felt it was. And they spoke about the classroom and the learning spaces, it being adequate, not too hot, everything working as it should. As it relates, they spoke about partnerships, and they thought exchanges were relevant. They spoke to things like being able to do virtual exchanges. They spoke to the vocational practice, being able to go out in industry and be able to interact with industry as they should. Flexibility of course offerings, and they spoke about the affordability of these offerings. And what the students were saying is that basically they wanted to be able to determine how many courses they do based on their affordability. They wanted some level of flexibility when the courses are offered, particularly for part-time students. They were saying that the morning classes were not favorable for them in terms of they are working and they have to rush from work to school and back to work. So they want some level of flexibility there. In terms of module selection, they want to be determine, as I said before, the number of modules that they would be able to select. As it relates to customer service, they felt for the most part that customer service within the faculty was good. However, they spoke to admissions and enrollment, and they spoke particularly to finance. And it's all across the board that they are saying, boy, these persons, all they are interested to do is to take our monies, but that extra help along the way to get us settled in the teaching and learning is not there. Now, as it relates to, so summing up, what are the faculties, what is the faculty's response to the quality indicators? So favorable ratings were given to the overall course content, the overall learning. In that faculty, they sang praises because they say it's the lowest rates, tuition fees, within the university. They were able to relate to the lecturers, and they saw relevance in the programs, and these were seen through the number of guest lecturers. They would have seminars, conferences, workshops, etc. However, the unfavorable ratings came with the administrative services. They also spoke to the instructor module evaluation, and that is a system that they would discuss challenges or praises that they would have for a particular module, and the lecturers, they were saying that feedback, they didn't often see feedback being executed as they should. Now, what are their recommendations for improvement? Lecturers should be mandated to attend professional development workshops regularly, particularly the part-times. The faculty or the university should provide mandatory and ongoing customer training for staff. The faculty should encourage partnerships with more industry persons to serve as mentors and career advisors. The faculty should consider removing or amalgamating modules with overlapping content. Students should be made more aware of how their concerns are being addressed through the instructor module evaluation forms. All lecturers should be mandated to set up virtual offices. The faculty or the university should conduct regular student satisfaction surveys. The faculty should act in a timely manner to address issues over which they have control. I will skip over this, it will be there. Basically, it was just a little comparison between what the literature said and our own findings, which you will find that generally they concur that it is so. In terms of conclusion, so we say that it is studies are consistent with those my studies consistent with the literature. We find that considerations must be given to cost effectiveness, affordability, and flexibility as it relates to being responsive to students' needs. And that while institutional policies exist, there needs to be greater feedback and how this is effectively managed as it relates to students. And of course, we talk about the ongoing professional development as being meaningful to teaching and learning. And we say administrative and academic excellence absolutely must be highlighted. And that would indeed enhance students' perception of quality education. I thank you.
Colleagues, join me again in thanking Mrs. Gordon-Brightson for a very stimulating presentation. Thank you.
I thank you for being present here for my presentation, Exploring Fit for Purpose as an Important Quality Marker. The authors for this paper are myself, Marcia Williams, and Dr. Ellen Grizzle, former Dean of the College of Health Science. And we are from the University of Technology, Jamaica. First, I want to give you the presentation overview. I will be going a bit over the introduction, the methods, there are findings, a discussion, and the conclusion. First, let me give you a background to this study. It's entitled Fitness for Purpose, and we actually looked at a new course of study in the College of Health Science, BSc in Pharmaceutical Technology, where we recently had our first cohort of graduates, and we were just analyzing the quality of the delivery of the curriculum in terms of fitness for purpose. This is some of the literature review, and my predecessor adequately defined quality in the same context, so I won't repeat it, because that was already done. Just to say that different universities will use different methods of assessing quality. We found that in the United Kingdom, some universities apply the concept as quality as excellence. Other, more recently established universities adapted quality as a fitness for purpose definition, which is what we are looking on today. The focus of quality in assessing the quality in higher education, the focus tends to be on the academic processes, particularly on the character and quality of academic staff contribution to teaching and learning. However, in looking at fitness purpose, we are looking at how the curriculum, how the learning activities, what is taught, is it fit for purpose? And the purposes can be varied depending on who the stakeholders are. For example, the University Council of Jamaica, which is the accrediting body in Jamaica, they use a lot of criteria for assessing quality, and one of them is actually fitness for purpose, in the fact that they actually interview employers of graduates to see if they are employable in their organization. In terms of fitness for purpose, different stakeholders will have different criteria. So for the students, their criteria would be quality of teaching, as was already said, safe and secure environment, and how well the students are prepared for the job market. So in designing our curriculum, one of the ways we can do is to look at the need of graduates that is required in our surrounding or in the country. The curriculum should be based on the real needs of the job market. Student satisfaction depends on their chances of being placed in a job after graduation and the relevance of the skills on the workplace during the course. In designing a curriculum with graduate employability in mind, the most valued skills and competencies of graduates should be determined through evidence-based study. In terms of the government, their criteria would be that they would need trained scientists, engineers, medical personnel, and you'll see the need that is in the country for trained personnel, and they would like the university to fill those needs. The employer would want graduates with a wide range of skills and the ability to quickly acquire new skills, and they should also be highly adaptable. And you'll also find that employers also stress on the soft skills, right? Leadership skills, able to get along with other employers, the personality skills, and so on. Now, in 2013, the College of Health Science embarked on an initiative that was aimed at filling the gap for trained pharmaceutical technologists who were work-ready. So this actually involved us designing a course of study that would equip students with the knowledge and skills applicable to manufacturing and analysis of quality pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals products. This would have been the first course of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean. Cuba actually has a course similar. So in designing the course, we established a working group. The working group consisted of persons in academia, regulatory affairs, and major players in the pharmaceutical industry. We had regular meetings at which the competencies and the skills that are identified, and these form the basis of the curriculum content. We also conducted a needs survey among potential employers and also among potential applicants. Preliminary work was done. The dean, Dr. Grizz at the time, met with JAMPRO, and from whom we got a letter of support. The minister at the time, Mr. Philip Paulwell, gave us a letter of endorsement. We met with representatives of the nutraceutical and pharmaceutical industry. We also made a submission to the Pharmacy Council because we wanted these graduates to be regulated and that persons could not do their functions without having the competent skills. We were not successful in having the Pharmacy Council recognizing them, but it's a working process. So you see, we're here, we did not just develop a course of study out, we engage people in the community. Now, what were the goals of this course of study? They are all listed here, but I will just highlight the third one: to adequately prepare students with the required knowledge, scientific competencies, entrepreneurial and critical thinking skills, attitudes and techniques necessary to become successful pharmaceutical students. In other words, we are making them fit for purpose. These are other objectives that we had. So in designing the curriculum for this course of study, we looked at each objective and we mapped it with a module. So we thought of what would be the content in our syllabi that would fulfill these objectives. We also included 2 experiential learning components. One was done in the summer for 5 weeks, where they went out into industry to learn the practical aspects. And the other one was in the last 3 months of their training. They were not on campus, they were out in industry. We did that because we know that there are some benefits of experiential learning. Experiential learning actually helps in the development of the technical skills, and it also helps to build confidence. The students are learning in theory and some labs and so on at UTech, but they needed to see that what they were learning was actually could be applied in industry. So the summer period when they went out, we really saw that they could appreciate more what they were learning, because they saw it, that they could use the knowledge during their internship period. It also helped in the transition from study to work, because we saw this happening. Persons who went out in industry, when they saw the competencies of these graduates, they actually got jobs in the place that they did their externship. It provided the graduates with the opportunity to demonstrate their skills to potential employers. And it also gave the employers the opportunity to contribute to the training of the potential employee. And they themselves were given the opportunity to develop some of the desirable skills and graduate attributes. So the first batch of students that commenced their studies in August 2014, we graduated 10 students, the first cohort, November 2018. So now we are examining the responses of employers and graduates of this course of study to determine whether the expectation of the employers and the graduates were met, and by extension, if the course of study would meet the quality criteria of being fit for purpose. In terms of how we went about the study, we actually collected data from graduates and employers. We did not just look at employers of the graduates, but employers that took externs as well. And we also interviewed the graduates themselves. Our findings, well, the types of organization to which the employers were in 57% were in pharmaceutical manufacturing, 43% were in the cosmeceutical herbal industries. Now we looked at 6 competencies, and we asked employers to rate whether they strongly agree, disagree, or disagree that the graduates had these competencies. The competencies were scientific knowledge, technical skills, problem-solving skills, communication skills, leadership, and if they had good professional behavior. As you can see, the majority of the employers thought they had good scientific skills, technical problem-solving skills. Most of them strongly agreed that they had these skills. In terms of the softer skills, they thought they had them, but not as much as for the scientific knowledge and the technical skills. They were asked to rate if the graduates were versatile, good team members, or if they were both. An overwhelming majority, 71% of them, felt that they were both versatile and were good team members. They were asked to respond to whether they agree that the graduates or interns have added value to their organization. All of them agreed that they added value, but 85% strongly agreed that they added value. So the employers, all respondents indicated that they would recommend graduates of this course of study. In terms of their satisfaction, they felt that they learned quickly and able to adapt. They were very satisfied with their performance. They were able to develop products that were market ready. One employee expressed that the experience was awesome. We hired a graduate as a quality control manager. And others said graduates and externs demonstrate exemplary work attitudes. They fit into the team perfectly, and they communicate well with customers. In terms of their dissatisfaction, some were not satisfied. They thought some were a bit selfish with their information. Some were not so confident for the work environment. They needed to speak up a little more and take on more leadership role, and their confidence needed a little boosting. Now let us look at some of the responses of the graduates. What were the graduates' perception of the effectiveness of the course of study? They all felt it was effective, with the majority, 57.14%, felt that it was very effective. In terms of those who had job offer before and after graduating, approximately 43% actually got jobs offer before graduating. And all of them are currently employed. All the respondents stated that they would recommend the course of study, with approximately 43% indicating that it's extremely likely that they would do so. The most valuable experience for these graduates were developing and designing various dosage forms and also conducting analytical tests. They particularly liked cosmetic technology, where they were making things like lipsticks and creams and lotions and so on. Most of them expressed the fact that they liked the work experience, being in industry and getting the experience before graduating. One person said, overall, the lectures were wonderful. I enjoyed the knowledge I grasped while at UTech. Least favorable experiences were that they thought we did not have enough equipment to do what the course required, and they had exams too close to each other. They didn't have time to prepare for their exams. So, in discussing the findings, the employers felt that the graduates were equipped with the requisite knowledge to perform on the job. The graduates are also of the opinion that they received adequate training to perform. It can be stated, therefore, that the graduates are employable in pharmaceutical and nutraceutical manufacturing industries. Employability is very important in higher education, as my predecessor said, and in order to improve their chances of gaining employment, it is important for graduates to demonstrate that they possess the skills required in the career of their choice. So I just skip to the conclusion because I'm at the end. The quality assurance concept of fit for purpose is an important quality assurance factor within the tertiary education system. It is an essential consideration in program development and subsequent review. The satisfaction expressed by external stakeholders, employers, and graduates confirms that the course of study is fit for the purpose for which it was intended. Internally, the fact that a set of internal standards of providing qualified graduates was met indicates that fit for purpose was also achieved for internal stakeholders, which were the course developers. These are the references, and I thank you for listening.